Arutperumjothi Arutperumjothi Thaniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi 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 Thaniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi.
I welcome all the Swamis from Vallalar Mission in Thiruvanamalai who have graciously attending today's session after their very tight schedule over the last few weekends. And as usual, today we will go into a new subject, or rather a more detailed subject on what we did last Saturday under the most knowledgeable Balaji from Florida, USA. He has dedicated his time in a lot of research, especially in what Perumal has taught all of us in his various teachings and writings. And today he will continue further into the mantra to purify the mind. Now, basically, Balaji has talked about the Maha Mantra last week and how it revolves around the main concept of compassion. And he spoke about it in detail and how it connects to our mind, our soul, our body. So without much ado, I pass over today's session as well to Balaji.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to this session, and together we are trying to discuss and share our knowledge with each other. And most of the knowledge, at least what I have acquired, is from the sadhus and during the satsang which they had performed everywhere. I was fascinated by once I understand this once I was trying to understand this concept of deathlessness, and I used to listen to whoever talks about Perumal, whatever they say, just keep on grasping it. And after that is only, I guess, where I started looking into the artifacts like Thiruvaruppa and other books for references. So want to really thank all the sadhus and everybody who shares their knowledge across the Suttha Sanmargam for conveying Perumal's glory. So last session, we did go over the mind, the body, and also the soul, and we compared and contrasted how all these work together. So it's going to be a continuation of it, and we are going to start today with the meditation. So the reason the last 6 session was basically like a prerequisite. Even in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, it's the same thing, Iyamam, Niyamam. So there are prerequisites even before going to meditation. Even though lots of people do ignore everything and try to go straight into it, there are some prerequisites to be followed for it to be successful. And that is why we have to go deep into the disciplines of body, the disciplines of mind, understand it, what soul is, and how is it different from mind? And then we are walking into meditation now. So before going into meditation, let's see like what the Perumal is saying about the aspects of breathing in meditation and how it's working. So Perumal says, elevated people's birth and death happens in right nostril. So the, Kalai in Tamil is what's called as the breath. So Idagalai and Pingalai. Idagalai is actually breath in the left nostril, and Pingalai is breath in the right nostril. So Idagalai actually, or the left breath, actually cools down the body. The right breath actually will be the opposite of the cooling effect. It heats the body. So elevated people's birth and death happens in the right nostril. Regular birth and death happens in the left nostril. I mean, we really do not realize that breath actually, most of the breath happens either in the left nostril or in the right nostril. And you can feel sometimes actually it switches as well. Sometimes, it happens in the left nostril, or sometimes, it switches back to the right nostril. We can actually feel for yourself by keeping your fingers over. You might feel a small air in the other nostril, but 90% or 95% of the breath actually always happens in one of the nostrils only. And then right nostril experience is not easy. So it's hard to achieve right breath always through right nostril. And it's also said that when breath goes through the right nostril, even physically, it's good because of the digestion process and all other process. And that's why Perumal says, while even sleeping, lay on the left side, because the breath goes on the right side of it. Then Perumal also says, meditation should be performed when breathing, when the breath goes on the right side of it. So when the breath is on the right side, we can do meditation up there. So this is what is the correlation of breathing in meditation. I used to practice lots of pranayama before coming to Suttha Sanmargam. It's the initial phases. I think when we walk into spiritual, the awakening of Kundalini and all those things really fascinates. I think fascinates. And then I got into this so much. At some point of time, my only goal was just to wake up the Kundalini or to open up the third eye. So I started practicing all the bandhams, Mula Bandham, Udiyana Bandhams, Surya Veda, all kind of mudras, Kechari mudra, anything, using the tongue, everything, like 1.5 hours in the morning, 1.5 hours in the evening, and all those things. The reason why I'm saying here is, in the end, if time permits, we will go over this. Perumal says the characteristics of a person who had his third eye open. He says this is the characters what the person will possess if he had his third eye open, and that's quite interesting. And we will try to walk over that one as well. So what do we really meditate on? That is the next question. So what is meditation? What do we meditate on? We always see people trying to meditate on nature stuff. Some people try to meditate on Buddha. Some people, on mountain, natural stuff, Panjabhudam. There are some practices which does that too. So this bears a question, like, can we meditate on an object? Do we really need an object, or can we done in a vacuum? Can it be done in a vacuum? Do we really need an object in the first place to start with, right? So for this, what happens is there is a debate, and Perumal was asked to be in that debate. It's a debate which a person named Sambedu Sridhara Swamy Naikar from Brahma Samaj was insisting the people to actually think about Brahman, to think about God, and not to think through the idol worshipping, right? Not to use idol worshipping. And people were really confused about it. So they approached Perumal and said like, Brahma Samajam Sridhar Swamy Naikar is insisting like this, to go through the thoughts directly on Brahman and not to go through an object worship. So you got to clear up the doubts for me. So Perumal tries to clarify this thing. So we can use this one to see if really an object is necessary or not, or vacuum is basically a space. So in that, Perumal asks the Brahma Samaj people, like, it is good, but how can you think Brahman? And for that, they weren't really able to answer the question. And Perumal was asking, like, is Brahman even possible to think from the mind? Because from our level, we are inclusive of Maya, and Brahman is beyond Maya. So when we are inclusive and we are inside the Maya, how are we able to think about Brahman at this point of time? So we cannot think it. So that is the argument which Perumal puts forward, and there wasn't an answer from the Brahma Samaj people. So from this, what we really know is we definitely need an object to think about. And the second thing is, why do we even need an object? Because number one, we got to fix our mind at some point, on a point. So how do we fix our mind to that particular point if we do not have an object? We cannot fix our mind. So we need to choose that point. That is that object. And what is that point? That is the next thing which comes in. Right? So first we clarify that since we are not at the stage to think God directly, because He is everybody, He is everywhere. So we cannot, there is no shape or structure. So how could we even think through Him? Where could we even fit Him? That doesn't fit well. So that is the reason why we are using an object in the first place. And what object can be used? And that is also an important thing too. What object do we use to proceed with this thing? So this focusing of mind, this concentration of an object by the mind is what's called as dharana. And this is actually another step which takes us to the meditation. And that is why it's very important to choose the right object as well, because we become that object, and we will see that in the later stage. And that is why the right objects needs to be chosen. For instance, we watch a movie. What happens during that movie? We become the actor or actress of interest up there. We become the hero there. We are involved in so much that we really don't even realize the time flying off. We are involved in that so much. So at that point, we are one-on-one with that character there. That's what the movie people are trying to make, is basically trying to get us involved in it. Right? So we are becoming one in it. So if we are getting along with the villain, then that is the character which we possess. So the object there really is very important of choosing the right object. And even in Vedanta and other meditation techniques, where the natural objects or Ishta Devata of their choice is considered, Perumal gives us an object too. And for that object, we will go over what that object is, which everybody is also aware of. But the main thing here is the concentration is on that. So the fixing the attention of the mind, basically on this particular object, this is called as dharana. This is our concentration. And this concentration continuously, uninterruptedly have to keep on going. And this is what's called as meditation. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to focus our attention on an object. So all of our thought goes onto that object. So we are in oneness on that object, and the concentration goes on that object only. And the continuous flows there of the mind uninterruptedly on that object is called meditation. So this is, Perumal actually gives us a simple meditation, but a very effective meditation as well. So we saw why the object is really important. And the object what we are going to use is Divam, which is the lamp, the light, the grace light, what we are going to use. So initially, since what we have to do is basically concentrate on something, on the divine thoughts, focused on the same thing, it might be tough. And it's also okay to recite Agaval as the start of meditation. We can just recite Agaval or any Perumal song, and that is okay too, initially. And then go on as well. So that is totally okay too. So now let's get into the heart of it. Okay, so now we know that we need an object for us to concentrate on it. It cannot be a vacuum, so which means Perumal says, Nishkalamaga irukakudadu, he'll say it. Uruvam vendum endu. So we definitely need an object, we know, and that needs to be focused for us to focus. So what we want is also an environment where we have less to no interruptions. So a place where we can just be ourselves too. So this environment is very important initially. So we can start practicing. And then once things are good, after that, it might get better. So, but for the initial phases, these things would help. And if we remember all the meditation, when we go through the body, mind, and all those regulation, this is we are talking about the daily discipline. And the first point which Perumal tells after waking up is basically meditating. And definitely we need less food in our stomach during the time of meditation. And you will see during this daily discipline series, this meditation will be emphasized a lot. It is surprising that how many hours Perumal is recommending us for meditating. He'll be saying it before night and in the morning as well. So it will be hours and hours. It's almost like a part-time job is how he will be recommending us to do this. So we definitely do not want our stomach full in here. So even if we go with less food, avoiding all the external interruptions, we sit in one place, like in the picture how Perumal is straight, spine straight, and then the right hand on top of the left hand. Automatically, without even external interruptions, our siddham, which we went in detail last session, will start to work. Because if you remember, that's where all of our thoughts are getting stored. So slowly it's going to start coming in, one at a time, even though you don't have interruption. But even before the siddham is your bodily, you might start smelling something from the kitchen too. Or you might start hearing sounds too, the small sounds, which are okay. But this is why we went through all those bodily disciplines and all those mind disciplines. But so this is nature, this is common to hear all those small things, the ticking of clock, the small sounds which is being made by anything. So that thing is common. So we just have to go through all those things. And as we practice the disciplines for body and mind, it will get better. It's a constant, consistent practice is what we have to perform in here. Okay. So what we do, we try to find a good place. We settle in that place, sitting straight, and then we light a lamp. We want to make sure that the lamp is straight to our eyebrow center. So we try to keep the lamp straight to the eyebrow center. So this is our object, which we want to focus, right? This is what we want to focus initially. And what happens after that? So after that, what we can do is we can recite the mantram. We went about mantram last time in details. It helps us to purify the mind. So now we can chant the mantram outside. Arutperumjothi, Arutperumjothi, Thaniperum Karunai, Arutperumjothi. So we chant the mantra, chant it. And at the same time, we are looking at the light as well. So this process, we can continue until we start to get tears in our eyes, or we feel any burning sensation, or even we might not get any of those things, but we can think that, okay, fine, our mind is calm now and we are good now. So once we have that, once we sense that thought, what we can do is, like what Perumal says, we have to visualize and feel the God's grace as light in the eyebrow center. So this is what Perumal says. So in the eyebrow center, feel and visualize soul's intellect as camphor and God's grace as the light which resides in it. So we look at the object, we chant the mantram, and then we close our eyes. And then we want to feel and visualize it in us. We want to think that the grace of light is nothing but the God. That's the God's grace of light, which is residing inside us. So this bhavana or bhavanadidam is very important. And this is what will lead to a success. Because what we are trying to be is we are trying to associate the God's grace to us. So we are trying to become one with that particular object in here. So when trying to become one with that object and to become one with that object, we need to visualize that thing. And we saw last class about Nadam and Bindu, the sound and the light, which is also the manifestation of God. So it is basically the continuation of that too. So after that, we continue this process of feeling and visualizing the grace of light inside us. We continue this process. And during this process, it is very important to have love on God and to show compassion and have the compassion to all souls. So these things need to be in us for us to succeed. And at this point of time, on this time, remember, once we start visualizing inside, we can close our eyes at that time. I mean, you may ask that, oh, can the eyes be opened? I think it's dependent on that person. If that person is in a good stage and he is not disturbed by any other faculties, then it's okay. But initial stages, it's always better to close the eyes. And then we repeat the mantra of Arutperumjothi in us, but this time we are not saying it out loud. We are just doing it in our mind within us. And the very important point here is there is no movement here in any of this phase, any of this complete 4 steps. No movement of mouth or no movement of tongue. So we just repeat the mantra so that our mind is concentrated. We keep our mind engaged and we try to look in our eyebrow center. So we try to be in oneness at the same time with the grace of light. So we are basically trying to engage from all fronts to help us. So this is the Vindu and Nadam, the sound and light. We spoke about this in the last session. So now everything adds up. So in Jnanasariyai, Perumal has this thing wonderfully summarized. Ninaindu, ninaindu, unardu, unardu. So ninaindu is keep on thinking it. Unardu is you keep feeling it. And negildu, negildu. So he actually puts every word 2 times. That's the repetition process. So this needs to be continued. So when we feel and feel the extreme of it is what is called as negildal. And at that time, what happens is anbe niraindu niraindu will be filled with love at that point of time. And that is the time Utrelum kannir adanal, the tears flow in our eyes. We might have had all these experience sometime without our knowledge. This can happen too. So what we are trying to do is trying to practice this with the knowledge up here. And then in the end of the same poem, he says, Sirchabayil pugum tarunam iduve. This is the right time to walk into the eyebrow center. So this is the right time to get into the eyebrow center. This sums up pretty good. So now we'll go with this process one more time. So what we do is we sit straight in a position where it's comfortable, like how Perumal is. Have our right hand on top of our left hand. We light a lamp straight to our eyebrow center. We may have to adjust it, whatever fits best to us. And then chant the mantram there, Arutperumjothi mantram, looking at the object, which is our lamp, the mud lamp up there. But we have to visualize that that's the grace of light in there. That's the God's grace of light. So that is God, basically. That's what we are trying to visualize there. So we are trying to visualize that and chanting at the same time. At some point, what we want to do is we try to feel ourselves back that, okay, fine, our thoughts are getting better. We are in a stable position. We are not moving anywhere. So the body is basically kind of listening. Our mind is settling. And at that time, what we can do is, or if our eyes start burning, we close our eyes gently. Don't have to do it tight. Gently is good. And then visualize the same light, which is the God's grace of light, inside the eyebrow center. We feel and visualize it. And during that visualization process, we are showing our love, and we are really compassionate there. And how do we show our love and being compassionate? We are repeating the mantra of Arutperumjothi at the same time inside, without the movement of mouth, and we are not moving our tongue. So this process is completely motionless as possible. So to get the best experience, we try to be motionless and keep continuing it for some time. So during those time, there are lots of experiences which we might get. Happiness is one. It depends on the temperament, the mode of the sadhana, the concentration, and the other factors. Even though those determines it, we might feel the peaceness. We might feel the spiritual bliss as well. Eventually, hope some point of time everybody should feel it, including me. And then we might hear sounds too, as said in some other meditational practices. So all those things are a possibility. But the main thing is, like a man running after two rabbits, he cannot catch neither of them. Like that, a meditator who runs after two conflicting thoughts will not succeed in it. So the divine thought is very important. The divine thought for 10 minutes, then worldly thought conflicting, those things in an alternate way is not going to help in this case. So the one-pointedness with the strength and the vigor is definitely needed to succeed in this attempt. Having that divine thought all times is very important during it. Even when it goes out of hand, we try to bring it back. And due course of time and due practice after and time goes on, months passed by, our 5-minute concentration would turn to like 15-minute concentration, 30-minute concentration. It gets better eventually. And note that during something which Perumal says is Samadhi palakam palakam alla, sagaja palakame palakamagum. So Perumal says that samadhi, leaving the body, is not the right thing, and sagaja palakam is what Perumal recommends. Perumal actually doesn't give up a fast in one thing, and in one occasion when one of the student is asking like Perumal, like how can I achieve, how I can visualize everything, all those things, and get this thing fast, and what is the sadhana to do it? Perumal insists like, I can say something and you go after that, and that will deviate from what your goal is and what you're supposed to do. So sadhanam ondrum thevayillai. So there is no need for any sadhana. You just practice Jivagarunya Olikam, Satvicharam. Satvicharam is basically self-introspection, Tannai Arida. Jivagarunyam and Satvicharam. Those things are like the two what do they call as rudders or sticks in the boat to get us across from one shore to the other. So those two are the main sadhanas given to us. So during this meditation experience, Perumal says what happens is uruvam aruvamagum, which means the shape will turn into a shapeless one. So that is why we need to start with a shape. And our shape is our grace of light, Arutperumjothi, what we are trying to visualize. So shape actually turns into shapeless, and Dvaitam will turn into Advaitam. Dvaitamaga irundal Advaitam thane nadakkum, which means Dvaitam is duality, two, the seer and the seen. So the seer is the person, the meditator, who is there, and the seen is the object which we are trying to concentrate and which we are trying to focus on. So if only those two objects are there, here the seer is who? So seer is, if you remember last time I said, Perumal says, who am I? Nan yareninil, nan anma. Citranu vadivinan. I am the size of an atom. I possess millions of suns' power. Kodi Surya Aatralai Udayavan. So when the seer is there, seer here is the Anma, the soul. So when the soul and only the object is there, automatically both will turn into one. So Advaitam will happen automatically. And the seer disappears, and that's what's called as Advaitam. Is they become one and the same. So at that point of time, the meditator and the meditated, the thinker and the thought, everything, the worshipper and the worshipped are one and the identical. So it becomes the same in there. It becomes the object of meditation there. This is the meditational experience, which Perumal specifies in under the Dhyanam section. So after that, Perumal says about also Duriyam. So this stages just keeps on going. There is the stage called Duriyam, Duriyadidam, and then it just keeps on going. And those things are all, at least looks like something to be more to be experienced, like how Perumal says, like, we are not interested in God because we haven't really experienced it, because we do not know the taste of it. So I think when going over lots of things in too much detail theoretically might also sound like that. Because this is even possible. It is possible because even lots of siddhas have experienced it, and Perumal has clearly said it. So it's all possible, but we haven't really experienced it. As some experience come into our existence, things will be better then. So in this time of Duriyam, some of you might have heard, there is no mind at play. Mind completely dissolves in God here. So we saw that when there is even a small mind, we will never get soul's knowledge last time. Right? So these are the times when soul's knowledge come into the picture during this time, during Duriyam. But the definition of Duriyam is basically a state of absolute consciousness. We remember when we were talking about the food, and sometime we were talking about even liquor at that point of time. What happens is we lose consciousness at the time. Anytime we lose consciousness, that is actually equated as a small death even. So this Duriyam is a stage of blissfulness and absolute consciousness. But to understand it a little bit more, what is said is there are states which we go through on a daily basis. So right now we are in a awakened state. We are all awake. And at night, we go sleep. We are in a dream state. And then we dream. And then we go into a deep sleep state. And the deep sleep state does not have any dream in it. And that's called as Suluti. So, Jakradai, Swapnam, Suluti. All these three states we go through on a daily basis. And even that sleep state is where it said that we have a taste of death because we lose consciousness there. So in all these three states, what happens is there is something which is common across all these three states. At the time when we are awake, at the time when we are sleeping, there is something up there, because we can say, oh, you know what, I dreamt about these things. And sometimes we can say those things. And the deep sleep state, where we didn't have any dream, after that, still we are able to say that, oh, I don't know even what happened. I just closed my eye. I didn't even realize that I was sleeping, but it's already this time. But we feel great after that. We really did not dream, but we feel really great at that time. But we did feel that we did not dream anything, and we went to sleep, and the feeling was there. The consciousness was there. So what is common between all these three states is called as Duriyam, which actually jumps. It's the consciousness. So that's the subtle consciousness which actually jumps from phases to phases. That subtle consciousness is what's called as Duriyam. So that consciousness, when kept across all these three states, is there, but it's tough to feel for us because we are not there at this point of time. So Perumal actually also has in Agaval, actually, he says, Duriyam kadandu sugapuranam tarum ariya sitrambalathu Arutperumjothi. So after all these three stages, still we have to keep walking, and it's still not done. Then there is this Duriyadidam state. So it's like, it just, after that, still there is like Paraduriyam, and it just keeps on going. So there is these stages of process which has to keep going before even getting into Arutperumjothi. And this is why Perumal says, like, we don't want to get stuck in something when we go through this process and follow that small thing what we get, and don't become a slave for also, those things too. And that's why all these practices come into the picture. So now let's try to summarize this complete thing end to end. So in summary, holistically seeing everything, when we withdraw our senses, in our last 6 or I'm not sure, 4 or 5 sessions, we went through the disciplines for mind and disciplines for body, starting with body, of course, and then mind. That is the withdrawal of senses, and that's what's called as pratyahara. And when pratyahara ends, that is where our concentration begins. We'll be able to start our concentration. We'll be able to focus on something at that point. Otherwise, our mind keeps on jumping all over the place. So once we withdraw our senses through the practice of Indriya Olukam and Karna Olukam, Dharana begins there. Our focus begins there. Once we start to focus, then comes our meditation, because our focusing is nothing but the thought process, the continual thought process of the divinity. That thought process, when it ends, that is where really our meditation even starts there. And that's what we saw today. And when our meditation ends, that is where all this super conscious state, Duriyam, Duriyadidam, Paraduriyam, Sivaduriyam, all those super consciousness starts to happen. So this is, in a summary, what happens from end to end. And this is what we basically went through the last 5 or 6 sessions to talk about meditation and to get in there, what is the process involved in it, and how we actually get in there. So I think the time worked out to be perfect in here, even though maybe we should, I think, just, go over a little bit on summary, because I think I did also mention about the third eye opening. I think that happens with every spiritual enthusiast, who wants to aspirants, who is aspiring to get in there, about the third eye. But what Perumal says is quite important in here, and I want to basically share that knowledge as well. And what happens here with third eye opening is, Perumal says that, Nadukannai Takka Asariyar Anugragatal Tirakka Petru Kolvadu Nalam. That Asariyar here is nothing but actually our God, our Arutperumjothi in here. And then the main thing is, after that he says the characters who had his third eye opened. So the person who possesses that power, who had already opened his third eye, with compassion, if he looks at a dead body, that dead body should actually should wake up. It should actually உயிர் பெற்று எழும், he says. So it should automatically wake up. So he should possess that power. So want to make sure that everybody understand that. At the same time, that person, if for some reason, with some anger, he looks at a jivan, he looks at a uyir, right? It will actually vanish. It will sambalagam, he says. So this is the power that person possesses. So sometimes people might say that, oh, you know what, we can open this third eye. There's lots of things happening on. But let's be clear on what Perumal says in here. And he says, மேற்கூறிய பூட்டு அருள் என்கின்ற தயவுகோலை கொண்டு திறக்க வேண்டும். So there is a lock to open it. And that lock can be opened only with the grace of God. And without that grace, it cannot be opened. And that is our compassion, which we have been talking about. So know about the third eye now. And he also mentions that you can see in the experience, when you are experienced all this thing happening at the end of that third eye verse, right? He says about who possesses, what are the qualities that person who had opened his third eye possesses, and there is a lock in it. Who can open that lock and then be compassionate, and you can see for yourself. And I'm sure the person who can see for them is not going to come out, right? So anyway, with that being said, we will, I think it's time up. I think I took closer to than what it's usual, and we'll end this session. And thank you everybody for attending this. Thank you.
The problem I experience is trying to come out of it, try to end it, because you don't want to end it, you just want to be in the same state. How do you then try and, okay, now you can't be in that state for a long time, you got to come back. How do you then bring yourself back?
So at the time of meditation, how do we come out of meditation? So meditation is basically the continued thought process of divinity. And we keep on thinking about God, and how do we come out of it? So anytime we think about anything other than that, we already came out of that process, because there is an interruption which already had happened. And then there is this process where we become where it is only nothing but silence, and the oneness happens, which, like how Perumal says, uruvam aruvama irukum. So when we become advaitam, when we become one in it, I think that is an experiential process, and I am also longing to get there and experience that myself. So இன்று வருமோ, நாளைக்கு வருமோ, மற்ற என்று வருமோ, அரியேன் என் கோவே. That's what I'm thinking myself. But Perumal also says that the important thing here is also like how Anandaya was mentioning. we do not actually don't want to get don't want to go back off on it, like meaning samadhi palakam alla sagaja palakame palakam agum. So we do not want to forget that and get back, and I think we have to hold up the consciousness in it. I think that's the only explanation, Anandaya. I think from the theoretical perspective and from my experience I can say.
Actually, this today's session is very informative, because the how much we hear, that is not important, but how much we practice is important. So Balajaya rightly gave about how to do meditation, so which is very important, so that we can keep our mind focused. Because and also he said the valid point, the God's manifestation is in two forms. One is sound, another one is light. When we do this Mahamantra meditation with the focusing Jyoti on our third eye, there we see light, and there is light also there. Also we are chanting the mantra with the sound. So there is a culmination of sound and light, which is the manifestation of God. So that itself a great meditation that we need to practice, keep on practice until we attain the state of Advaitam, as he mentioned in the last. So we should keep on trying on that. And also the daily disciplines that we see for the last five sessions, that is very important, because meditation we will be doing for a half an hour a day or 1 hour a day, but all other 23 hours is very important, because that is going to get the count. So that at that time our mind is focused outside, we are into the world. So that daily disciplines is very important, where we can keep ourselves on the right track, so that when we go to meditation, when we are in the discipline, following the disciplines, then we can easily go inside to the meditation. So that is very important also. So this session has two things. One is daily disciplines, another one is another part is meditation. So these two things we have to keep in our mind. And what is as base is the compassion and love for God. That is the base for everything. On that base, we are going to build all these disciplines and meditation to get that ultimate experience of Suttha Sanmargam. So this is a very good session. I like to see more people on Zoom and YouTube to watch this valid knowledge, so that everybody will be knowing about the path of Suttha Sanmargam. So I'm thinking on that. I had discussed with other sadhus also how to make more people to attend this class. So we will do it surely. And also I once again thank Balajaya for enlightening us on the path of Sanmargam, and also I like to thank Gandhi Naya for hosting this program, and also for facilitating this program, and all the participants. So we have kindled you. We have just given an introduction to the path of Sanmargam for you all. So you keep on search on Suttha Sanmargam. You keep on read about Vallalar Perumal, his teachings, Thiru. So I request all of you to, as much as possible, try to adapt these principles in your day-to-day life, so that we can, on the one side, we will not be fully into the Maya. We can keep God inside us. We can keep our Guru inside us, and also we can have a stable life. Thank you very much, Arutperumjothi. So today we had heard about the meditation. Now we can at least, I don't take much of your time. We can do at least 3 minutes meditation, what we heard today. With your permission, I request all of you to sit with your spine erect. Please close your eyes. Slowly bring your concentration on the third eye center, in the eyebrow center. See a divine light between your eyebrow center, like a campfire glowing, the light in between your eyebrow center. I will chant the Maha Mantra. After me, you all can chant with me. After me. Arutperumjothi, Arutperumjothi, Thaniperum Karunai, Arutperumjothi. 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 Now chant the mantra inside your mind. Please don't move your lips or tongue. Please chant the mantra inside your mind. Keep your attention in your third eye center, third eye region, on the divine light. By seeing that light, chant the mantra inside your mind. Now please slowly stop the chanting. Just only focus on the third eye region, on the divine light, on the grace light. Stop chanting. Just focus your attention on your third eye center. Now slowly all chant the mantra with me. Arutperumjothi, Arutperumjothi, Thaniperum Karunai, Arutperumjothi. Arutperumjothi, Arutperumjothi, Thaniperum Karunai, Arutperumjothi. அப்பா நான் வேண்டுதல் கேட்டு அருள் புரிதல் வேண்டும். ஆறுயிர்கட்கெல்லாம் நான் அன்பு செய்யல் வேண்டும். எப்பாரும் எப்பதமும் எங்கனும் நான் சென்றே எந்தை நினது அருட்புகழை எம்பிடல் வேண்டும் செப்பாத மேனிலை மேல் சுத்த சிவமார்க்கம் திகழ்ந்து ஓங்க அருட்ஜோதி செலுத்திடல் வேண்டும் தப்பேது நான் செய்யினும் நீ பொறுத்தல் வேண்டும் தலைவனினை பிரியாத நிலைமையும் வேண்டுவனே. அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி எல்லா உயிர்களும் இன்புற்று வாழ்க. திருவருட்பிரகாச வள்ளல் பெருமானார் தெய்வ திருவடிகளே சரணம் சரணம். குருவே சரணம், குருவே துணை, அருளே சரணம், அருளே துணை.